All right, hopefully we can get everybody to, I hate to say stop networking, but make their way back into the ballroom. Our next panel, if you guys want to go ahead and come up on stage. When we were putting together the content of the conference, one of the things we thought would be interesting is to talk to some of the companies who are actually not only cloud providers, but also running their entire business on cloud services. And so I've invited Michael Pearl from PricewaterhouseCoopers, who obviously helps a lot of companies in this space, to talk to these guys and figure out, what are the advantages, what are maybe some best advice, some tips, some pitfalls to avoid. So Mike, I'll let you introduce your panel.
Excellent. Rihanna, thanks very much, and it's a pleasure to be here. Hopefully we'll get some of the folks back in from networking here. But I'm very pleased to be here. As Rihanna said, my name's Mike Pearl. I'm a partner with PwC, and I lead our cloud computing business for the US. And just to set some of the context, many of you may know PwC in the context of auditing and accounting. But we're also about 40,000 strong in our consulting business and an $8 billion consulting business worldwide, spending much of our time around business strategy through execution and technology enablement. And so, as Rihanna mentioned, I spend much of my time helping organizations understand the business value of cloud and how to leverage that in a number of different ways, but most primarily in how to leverage cloud to drive business growth. And I'm very pleased to have an excellent panel here of folks who have a tremendous amount of experience in the cloud space and helping their clients and customers grow their business. First, I have Nara Balakrishna, who is the Vice President of Strategy from Appirio. I have Guy Shani, who's the COO for Clarizen, and Gil Zimmermann, who's the co-founder and CEO of CloudLock. So, gentlemen, thank you for being here with me. Maybe to set a little bit of context in your background and some of your credentials, give a brief overview of your organization and what they do.
Should I go first?
Nara, please.
So I work for Appirio. Appirio is a cloud solution provider, and we help mid to large size businesses move their businesses to public cloud solutions like Salesforce, Google, Workday. So we provide the range of services from strategy all the way to ongoing management with professional services that are supported by technology and a crowdsourcing community. And what I'll be talking about today is a little bit of how we use the cloud internally, because we run our business 100% on the cloud. Plus, I'll talk about how our customers, and we have about 300 enterprises that we've worked with, how they use the cloud to power different parts of their business and are even moving toward cloud-first strategies.
Excellent. Thanks, Guy.
Yes, hi, my name is Guy Shani, and I'm the CEO of Clarizen. Clarizen is a collaborative online project management. We have offices in Israel and in San Mateo, about 1,600 customers and growing. From different types of industries, from small to medium to very large enterprises. I'll talk today again about the way that we are leveraging cloud internally, because I usually say that I'm not only the CEO of Clarizen, but I'm first and for all a customer of Clarizen. We use our own tool across the organization, from R&D to finance to professional services, as well as other SaaS tools. And I think that we experience and kind of eat our own dog food here.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we definitely see the value, and we help customers see the same value.
Great. Gil, how about you?
All right, hi, my name is Gil Zimmermann. I'm one of the co-founders and I'm CEO of CloudLock. And basically what CloudLock is all about is cloud data security. We help enterprises leverage the cloud in a more secure way than they've ever been able to leverage any other alternative platform. And basically what that means is we provide them with complete visibility and control of their data on someone else's infrastructure. We work with Google's largest accounts, for example, in the Google Apps ecosystem, in helping customers prevent data leakage, giving them the governance, compliance, and reporting capabilities that they need for their data, while fundamentally the underlying principle being giving the end users the simplest form of collaboration, which also happens to be the safest and most secure form of collaboration. And I'll be talking about our experience with our customers. We have hundreds of enterprise customers. We cover over 1 million end users in our service today. Our application and our business are built entirely in the cloud. Our IT infrastructure consists of a router for anybody here from the United Kingdom. So we feel the pain, but we also see the advantages of a fundamental shift from building a business where you can actually focus 100% of your energy on your business as opposed to kind of the sustaining infrastructure that other people can do a better job at.
Gil, maybe you can continue a little bit with that notion, because I would like to hear from each of you on you're each very fast-growing businesses, a lot of demand for your services, and the need for you to be able to keep up and react to the market obviously is paramount. So maybe you can go a little bit deeper and give us some examples of further examples of how you're leveraging cloud to manage the growth of your business.
Sure. So if I could, I'd start off by plagiarizing your article from Fortune, Michael, and I like your analogy a lot of business credit. So basically what the cloud enables us to do is things that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So just like credit enables a business to go far beyond the scope of what their cash hoard is, cloud enables us to do things we couldn't do otherwise. We can support 1 million end users without having a single server. We can develop software without maintaining our own data center, without maintaining operations. We don't have an operations staff. We don't have a dedicated support person. We have a development organization. We develop software. We ship software on a daily basis. We provide a service on a daily basis, and that forces us. Also, the whole model, I think, is different because it forces us to continuously innovate and continuously provide value. Because our customers are subscribers. They're not buyers. They don't buy a piece of software and then go away. They continuously have to buy into the value that we provide to them. So there's health there. And so our application is built on Google App Engine, for example, and we can abstract away the management of a physical data center, the management of operating systems, of hardware, even of virtualization stacks, and we can focus purely on software development. On the sales side, we don't run an in-house CRM system. We use Salesforce. On the marketing side, we use our marketing automation like Marketo and Leadlander and Google Analytics. We don't let anything into our shop that is not a subscription, is not a service. It's kind of like, for me, the internet transformation and what the internet did for businesses. Building a business without connectivity to the internet is insane. And I think today, building a business that doesn't take advantage of the cloud is just as insane, if not more. So it's just a matter of time that everybody wakes up and sees that it just does not make sense to spend your dollars, your time, your people on things that aren't core to your business and are just distracting you away from your core value.
There are some who think that the internet wasn't as transformative in the late 90s, and just now we're getting to the real transformative value of the internet through cloud computing. But that's an excellent summary and example of managing accelerated growth in the cloud. Guy, if we want to talk a little bit about eating some dog food, maybe you can share with us some of the experiences that your organization has had, in whether there's connectivity and collaboration across the globe with your spread out organization, or managing the growth in how you're engaging your customers.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that today, and we obviously experience it in-house, a lot of the organization are distributed. People are working in a virtual world. We have an R&D center in Israel with a large product group. We have sales and marketing in San Mateo. We have sales offices in Asia. And really the only way that we can grow our business is with this platform, or the cloud platform. There's really no other way. So as I said earlier, we are customers ourselves because we believe that that's probably the best way to learn the values and the pain of using your software. And we use our own solution across the organization, from all the agile methods in R&D, all the way to accounting process, HR processes, implementation of our solution through the world. We have customers obviously worldwide. and we manage like a worldwide implementation of companies that actually have multiple offices, all through the tool that we create. But in addition to that, very similar to you guys, we use tools like Salesforce, like Marketo, like Totango for analytics, and others, to basically have a better visibility of how people are using our software to run all our campaigns, run all our sales processes, etc. And I think that there's no really a practical way for an organization like ours to be where we're at today, with about 100+ people only, and supporting so many customers in so many regions of the world without a platform, a software as a service platform.
Yeah, that's an interesting continued observation, and one that we see, as you probably well know, we serve very large, multi-billion, multinational organizations, and one of the greatest challenges they face from companies not unlike the panel sitting before you is that, and you think from a strategic perspective of Porter's 5 forces and having capital investments and an infrastructure to keep competitors out or market entrants out, this idea that you don't need that level of capital and you can really build a business from more of a leverage base than building up tremendous capital is really something that's changing the dynamic in the market. And Nara, share with us. You work with a large number of clients, kind of going through this, but maybe sharing some of your perspectives on how Appirio has grown tremendously fast and how you're managing your business.
Sure. So Appirio was founded in 2006, and we've grown from that point to about 500 of our own people today and serving 300 customers, like I said before. And really a core part of that has been the fact that we built our infrastructure entirely on cloud solutions. So like these guys, we use Salesforce, Marketo, Workday for the back office stuff, and Google Apps for collaboration. And what that's helped us do is, first of all, it's helped us be super efficient. So our IT costs are about half of the Gartner benchmarks. We have 3 guys basically supporting 500 people as well as our customers. And then it's also helped us be innovative in the sense that we're able to do things with the consulting model that wouldn't have been possible without the cloud. So for example, we run all our projects using tools that we built ourselves using the Salesforce platform, so that lets us drive efficiency and reuse. We have assets that we can catalog and reuse. Plus, it also helps us use things like crowdsourcing. So we built a community of developers across the world, about 40,000 developers, that we can bring onto any project. And again, that's a result of not just kind of using one cloud platform or another, but applying the ideas of the cloud to our own business. And then the final piece of it is, of course, being able to move quickly. So when we go into a new geo or introduce a new service offering, all of those things, simple things like bringing a new organization on board or onboarding new employees, changing some aspects of how we recognize revenue, all those things are easy for us compared to what it had been like at any other company. I think one of the interesting things for me coming from large organizations before is we spend a lot less on IT, and I, as a business user or as a consumer of IT within the organization, feel like I have a much higher level of service.
That's great. That's great. Now, maybe you can build on that. I am going to want to. You've just sparked a thought there, and what we tend to see is if you can give 1 or 2 client examples, but maybe focus on some of the challenge you might see from IT organizations that you serve. So the idea that going to a CIO and pitching the story that we're going to be able to dismantle your organization and support this organization with probably without even you. How do they respond to that, and how do you maybe you take that question first, and then we can go into another couple of examples.
So Michael, I think that's a good question. I think a few years ago, most of the talk in the industry was about how you were going to go around IT, business users were going to do their own thing. And I think what's happened actually is that IT leaders recognize this shift, right? So about 60% of the time we work with IT leaders. And we're not going in with quite that pitch that you mentioned, right? So we're
a little more subtle.
But I think these IT leaders recognize that, they've been spending, if you look at Gartner benchmarks, they're spending 70%, 75% of their time and effort just on keeping the lights on, and they don't want to do that either. And one of the things that we found is that IT leaders and CIOs are excited about being able to free themselves from doing that infrastructure maintenance to moving on to doing things that are business innovation related, or even having to engaging better with the business and being able to say yes to the business. And that's something that we hear a lot from our IT leaders is, this is awesome because I can finally say yes to the business. I can become a business partner. I can change that relationship between IT and the business that people have been talking about IT and business, lack of alignment for the past, I don't know how many years. And the reason for that is not because people don't want to align, it's because technology has been holding them back, and now that's been removed a little bit. So the way we talk about it when we talk to IT leaders is really around freeing them and their teams from some of the constraints that they face today and helping them really become a better partner to the business and work in a different way.
That's great. Guy, I would imagine, given the core competency that exists within IT organizations around project and program management, you often interact with that community. Maybe you can give your perspective, however different
Yes.
it might be from what Nara just shared with us.
Sure. I think that what we see, and I think that is a similar experience, is that maybe 5 years ago, it was the early adopters. It was really usually the smaller companies or maybe people with a vision that really started to adopt this tool, the software as a service tool, as a platform for project management, which is kind of a traditional type of a process within many organizations. And even through the sales cycle, a lot of the questions were around availability of the service, how secure it is it the right vehicle, how can we make sure that the performance will be there. These days are pretty much over. I think that today, thanks to industry standard like SaaS 70 and SOC and others, that basically streamline the way that you need to deliver your application, as well as just the recognition that companies like Salesforce and other kind of paved the way in a way for companies like ours the discussion around is SaaS the right vehicle is no longer valid. I think that I would be surprised if there's any enterprise right now out there that is considering any enterprise software that it's not at least considering software as a service as a platform. Maybe they will go with on-premise at the end, but at least it's an option on the table, valid option. And I think that helps us a lot. Today we focus more on the functionality of the product and what we need to deliver, and the vehicle of SaaS is no longer an issue.
Excellent. Gil, given the space that you're in, one of the last standing objections to moving to the cloud is security and all that goes around security and risk management. And so maybe you can share kind of the dialogue that you're having with your customers around how they manage some of those risks, how they manage security, and almost turn that into an advantage as they're looking to scale more rapidly.
Yeah, so I think, thank you for that question. I think it ties in perfectly with the previous question, and Nara and Guy here pointed eloquently. And for me, CIO stands for Chief Information Officer. It's not Chief Infrastructure Officer or anything other than Chief Information Officer. And information is at the core of what IT is all about. It's making that information accessible and safe so the business can leverage it and run the business. And it's the business's information regardless of where that information sits, whether it's on-premise or in the cloud. And there's a few waves that are happening in the industry that are unstoppable. So CIOs today that are not on that activity of embracing the cloud should be looking for a job. That's what they should be focused on. And if they are on that, really it's all about making sure that IT can provide an equal or better solution than what customers, the end users, are going to use regardless of IT. So if IT doesn't provide the best collaboration tools, the best project management tools, the best any tool, the users will find a way to use that best tool, whether it's consumer grade, and we call that rogue collaboration. So if you think for a moment that you can shut off the public cloud, you are mistaken, because no organization, other than a select handful of very sensitive organizations that are very deep underground, is disconnected from the internet. And what that means is that people will find a way to collaborate, and they'll do it without your consent, and they'll do it in applications that are not built for the enterprise, that aren't secure, and where the terms of service and the access, there's really what we call it is the infinite endpoints. So it's changed from where previously I could secure desktop devices and I could secure a firewall and a gateway. I can't do that anymore because all of my applications, all of my data, whether I like it or not, whether I provide the services or the users are going off and consuming their own, it's in the public cloud. I asked, I sat in front of a bunch of CIOs in the financial sector, financial services sector, and they said, public cloud is not on, we're not using public cloud. And I did a show of hands of who's using Dropbox. We can try it here. Anybody here using Dropbox? All of you guys are going against corporate policy, right? If you've read the terms of service, especially if you're lawyers, right? You're handing over sensitive information to a repository that's not governed by your organization, that doesn't adhere to corporate acceptable usage policies. People aren't out to break the rules or break the laws. They're just out to get their job done. And IT's role is to enable them to do that. Get out of the way is the first thing, and then make it so that you can do it even better. So from a security perspective, what the cloud has enabled us to do is to do security at a level that you previously couldn't do. We have customers, financial services customers, as well as manufacturers, customers that have 50,000 users. They can search through all the users' documents simultaneously, content aware, context aware, and make informed decisions and take action in a matter of seconds, where previously this would cost millions of dollars, would be rolled out and would be riddled with holes because it just wouldn't work, and now it does. So it's not just a matter of taking what we used to do on premise and asking those same security questions. It's asking new questions. Not only how can I at least answer these basic questions, but how can I do things that I couldn't do before? And really what we're enabling customers to do is embrace collaboration tools, embrace the internet and the public cloud, and do so in a way that also adheres to the corporate standard of how information should be governed and how it should be secured. It's pretty simple.
Now that's some interesting, on that note, and an observation across all of the examples you've just heard. So there's research out there that shows, the future of IT, and you mentioned CIOs that aren't going to jump on board. They might want to brush up their resume. The idea that there's two paths for IT organizations, and one path is to migrate towards an orchestrator or a broker of business services that is assembling the best of breed technologies and services that can be consumed and delivering that to the business. And those that don't embrace that or don't take that path are going to be relegated to keeping the lights on. And I would imagine there's not a CIO out there that would say, "Oh, I want the job that's just going to be keeping the lights on."
Like I would add one more thing is I think it transcends. It's not just the CIO. So one of the things we notice even in our marketing department when we're looking for who's our target audience, it's no longer people are changing their titles. It's no longer systems administrators and network architects. There's collaboration architects. Mm-hmm. New titles are being created.
Absolutely.
Whose role it is different.
Right. Absolutely. So let's shift gears a little bit. So we talked about some of the challenges that you might face in dealing with some of the stakeholders within an organization. Maybe, Nara, you can start us off in sharing maybe an example or two of one of the most innovative ways that you've seen your clients or you've helped your clients leverage cloud technology to really not focused on cost, but focused on accelerating their business and moving the growth of their business forward.
Yeah, so I think a couple of examples come to mind. I think the one I'll focus on is we've been working with Twitter quite a bit as they scale their business, and they're going from a relatively small sales team to hundreds of salespeople, and growing the revenue tenfold, that sort of projection. We've been working with them on really helping them build a front office that can scale and meet that demand. So we've been helping them use Salesforce, and we're helping them use a number of other cloud platforms to really think about, what does a really streamlined sales process look like in ad sales? And it includes things like, having visibility into inventory when you're selling, being able to follow inventory holds and do those types of things, as well as having standard contracts and all those types of things that really streamline that front end process, because they're actually going to have pretty high volume of inside salespeople that are going to be calling on accounts and doing relatively small transactions. So how do we do that in a way that gives them visibility, gives them that efficiency, and gives them the platform so they can innovate with new products and so forth? So first step has been front office, and and they're thinking about how do they scale that going forward over the next few years.
Excellent. Guy, how about you? What are some interesting? Before we sat down here, you talked about a few examples of the clients that you're working with, and I would imagine there's some pretty interesting ways they're using your technology around collaboration and managing growth.
Right. We see a kind of a variety of different values that we bring to our customers. Some of the larger customers, like Roche Pharmaceutical and KPMG, and people that are using it in kind of more traditional way, I think that the values are kind of the immediate values that suddenly people are using the tool. Just win the user and user adoption. As simple as that. People are saying it for many, many years, but at the end of the day, suddenly these type of platforms and tools allow people to really use it. From the mobile device, from the iPad, even from a browser. But suddenly you get all this data coming into the system. So people really participate in the process. So managers have full visibility. And it sounds trivial, right? People are saying it for years, but if most legacy systems, the problem was that people didn't put any information into the system, so you couldn't get any data out. I think that the main change that we see is that with the user participation, the data is there, and you have visibility and traceability and accountability or whatever to the processes, so you can actually make real-time decisions. That's kind of the values that we usually see in larger organizations and how they change. And some of the quotes that we get from customers looks a little bit kind of strange. People are saying, you really cut our timesheets process from days to hours. And it's hard to understand why it took days before, right? But that's the reality.
Yeah.
We're a smaller organization. We met yesterday. We had like a customer dinner yesterday, and we met with Marketo. So I'll give another example from a SaaS cutting-edge company that is using our tool. And they told us that they actually teach us, and we actually mimic some of their practices to use it with the way that we implement Clarizen. So they took it to the extreme. They really integrated it with their processes. They really manage how people are participating in the implementation phases. They have a full visibility of hundreds of implementation at customer sites. And they know exactly who is behind, what type of marketing activities needs to start, right? What type of email. So it's really, it's taking tools like Clarizen and tie it to the vision that they present as a lead nurturing and a marketing organization.
Excellent. That's a great example.
Yeah.
Gil, how about you? In looking a little bit more closely at your technology solutions, I would imagine you've probably got some fascinating stories of what some of your customers have learned from the standpoint of thinking about moving to the cloud and using your technology to govern and secure the information that resides there, to learning quite a lot about what information is actually there and where it is and who's using it. So do you have some examples of some aha moments that your customers have had?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a SaaS offering. It takes us about 60 seconds to get installed in any size organization. And when we go through a proof of concept, we have what we call, as part of the proof of concept, is the holy crap moment, which is the first time the customer sees the CloudLock dashboard and they see all the data that they have out there and how much of it is being shared publicly and how much information is being shared in by personal accounts, and how many external collaborators and external domains we're actually collaborating with. It's an eye-opener. And we've seen a transformation over the past 18 months of customers go from just the transformation of knowing what's out there to be able to understand finally that the acceptable usage policy that's buried in page 70 of the new hire guide doesn't really work. To really embracing, and customers started off, when we started talking with customers, we're actually installed in both of these guys' domains. Yes. These guys are paying customers, so thank you. We're working with Appirio. But we've seen customers go from really Exchange replacement and saying we're going to get rid of email and the costly servers of Exchange to full-blown cloud file server. We're getting rid of Windows file servers and NAS devices in the environment because we can finally use the cloud as our primary data store and use the on-premise piece as the satellite, right? We need it so when we're on the plane, I'm on the plane, I'll admit more than I'd like to be, but that's the exception. Most of the time, I'm online, and in some flights, I'm also online. So we've seen a transformation there, and even in those organizations that didn't formally roll out docs and sites, they're bewildered to see the amount of organic adoption. Once you've tried it, it's very difficult to go back to ping-ponging back version control, tracking changes, control documents, and email. So you can see a direct correlation between organizations that have gone Google in terms of the email traffic and attachment as opposed to the organic adoption of online collaboration with docs. And not only that, it's kind of, going back to the money analogy, there's another advantage to putting your money in a bank, which is you can put your money to work for you. You can invest it in venues that otherwise were not available to you. So while it's buried on premise in people's laptops and desktops and file servers, it's just bits on a disk. It's taking up space, and there's, those IT patch managers are happy that they have to, manage that infrastructure, but that's it. Other than that, it's just a burden. It's a capital expense. When you put it in the cloud and it's collaborative and people can get access to it and they can use it, it's so much more valuable, and that's the huge advantage, and it ties into every aspect. And there's a paradigm shift, which is, and that's kind of the other kind of aha moment, which is data doesn't belong to a server anymore. You can't go to a directory and enumerate the contents of that file. You can't get to it, and you don't want to. And even though we have a lot of customers that initially ask, okay, how do I get that? How do I do this? They don't need to, and it's really more about the business process. So when an employee leaves, how do we hold on to their data and move it to the right place? When an employee moves from finance and takes a sales position, how do we make sure that they no longer have access to information they shouldn't have access and compartmentalize that information truly and really and effectively and transparently so that we don't have to invest in reinventing the wheel every time. So those kinds of things are now instantly available, and they should be automated, and IT can enable that. And it's so much more powerful. And it goes the other way around too, which is a new person comes in, not only what should they not have access to, but what should they have access to. A new person joined the marketing team. What does the marketing team usually collaborate on? Maybe that person needs access to that too.
It's interesting. I have the vision of somebody stuffing dollar bills in their mattress as the old paradigm, and versus keeping their money in banks. So thanks for that perspective. One of the things that we see, I've gotten an interesting perspective. PwC, we work with all size organizations, but mostly on our consulting side, as I mentioned, multi-billion-dollar, multinational organizations. And so there are significant capital investments that have been made in legacy technology that even if they're enlightened financially, it isn't feasible for them to move away from completely. So maybe you could give a perspective, Nara, I'll ask you first, to some of the differences. We've talked about the real value to small to medium business, their ability to scale, but large organizations are really coming to grips with now having to fend off people that they never heard of or thought of before and grow their own business. And so what are you doing at that level of an organization to really help them get their head around the best way to leverage cloud as quickly as possible?
Yeah, I think the typical path is looking at the front office first, or looking at things that either interface with customers or with your sales team. I think that is or collaboration would be another place to start. Those are the two areas where we see companies kind of looking first. Mm-hmm. And in those cases, it's not necessarily throw out everything you have. It's really collecting information from a lot of the systems that you have and creating a front end, either for the customer or for your sales team, that's far more usable. And I don't remember which one of these gentlemen said it, but it was basically creating systems that people are going to use. So you might have invested tens or hundreds of millions of dollars in your Siebel system, but the reality is maybe 10% of your sales team uses it if they're beaten up by their sales manager, and you're not getting the value from that system. Even if you keep kind of the more complicated piece of functionality, let's say it's products and price books or quoting or whatever, you can keep that in your system that you've invested in. But putting a front end on it that exposes the right information to your internal customer or your external customer and gets them to actually use and engage with that system, that's a good starting point. Mm-hmm. As soon as you do that, we find that organizations want to do more. So you start with that, and then they want to start extending it further into the middle office or further outside toward the customer. And once they've seen that, other things start happening as well. How do we do more with collaboration? How do we bring this into our other processes like HR and finance? HR and finance are HR is a little bit further ahead of finance, but I would say, front office first, collaboration, very close to that, and then HR is, rapidly rising.
Excellent. Before I go further on this topic, I do, in the interest of time, I want to make sure that I extend an invitation. If anybody, based on the discussion you've heard here now, or any questions around managing your own growth or questions of that nature that you have for the panel, maybe we could take a question or two from the crowd, if we have any. We may not, but I want to make sure we don't have people walking out saying they didn't get their say. So, well, good. If you do, I'm sure they'll flag me down and stop me so that we can get the question answered. But Guy, I think it was you that talked about adoption and the importance of that. And I would imagine you do have some large enterprise organizations that are leveraging cloud.
Yes, and to kind of, it's funny, but one of the way that we go about convincing organization to really move to the cloud is using the benefit of the cloud of the remove friction from the decision process. So in the past, if you wanted to see the value in a system, you need to put a lot of money up front, you need to run pilots, you need to customize it. Otherwise, it's before you saw the first value, you really was kind of deep, swimming in deep sea in terms of investment. I've met with VP of operation of a very large organization a couple weeks ago, and we're working on a project. And they came with the regular kind of list of questions. We need 5 references with the same industry. We have 3 committees. We want to run pilot on 3 projects. We want this and want that. And by the time that he ended reading this laundry list, I just said, why don't you just try it? Choose one project, will help you be up and running in minutes. And if it brings value to your day, great. If it doesn't, instead of bringing all these people to sit here with kind of the high hourly rate and traveling to see reference sites, and that's the lend and expand. I'm
going to have to keep you away from my clients. Exactly. So no, it's tremendous value, and we're seeing a shift in that direction, and really that's the right answer for our clients. Gil, in the interest of time, you've shared with us a number of instances of the large organizations that you've worked with, so thank you for that. But to close, I hope all of you have found at least 1 or 2 things you can take away from the discussion today. And I want to again thank the panel for sharing your insights, both what you're doing with your organizations as well as your clients and customers. And again, thank you all for staying with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, panel. Our next speaker was the runner-up in the Who Wants to Be the Cloud Geek game show yesterday. His picture was also featured in Treb's presentation this morning. So if you don't know him, you certainly should recognize him. So I'd like to introduce Rick Nucci, who's General Manager at Dell Boomi.
Hello, everyone. So I'm going to talk to you for 25 minutes, being respectful of your lunchtime. And if any of you know what Boomi does, I'm not going to be talking to you about integration, although I'll use a couple of examples here and there. What I really want to talk to you about today is what are communities all about in the cloud. And what I specifically mean by that is, as all of us are looking at building cloud offerings, what is the impact and the value of a community and leveraging and exploiting that community? and investing in developing that community. And, you know, hopefully trying to inspire big thinking by sharing things that other companies have done in various aspects of creating their communities. So that's really what I want to try to get out of today, and again, hopefully encourage some big thinking. So every time I do a speaking session, I am so focused on trying to not make it a commercial about Boomi that inevitably when I'm done, somebody goes, what does Boomi actually do? And raises a question. So we provide cloud integration, and we help, as companies are moving to the cloud, we help them connect and integrate their applications together. And that's what our company has been doing. We've been doing integration since 2000. We've been part of Dell since 2010. Our focus and charter remains the same. And community has been a big part of what we've done. So that's really what I'm focusing on, is to share what community's meant to us as I kind of take you through this. So I spent a lot of time trying to come up with a definition of community, and that's, we could spend the whole 20 remaining minutes on, debating that. But I kind of liked the biological answer to the question, because I think it kind of really simplified the notion of a community down to its core. A group of interacting, living organisms sharing a populated environment. I kind of like that one because the key is that we have something in common as members of a particular community. We're interacting together in that environment where we have something in common, and there's some value that comes out of that. Because otherwise we won't keep talking to each other as a community. We'll just go off and find another community. So I kind of like that one. And I started to think about why should you bother, right? Why should you actually put in the energy to foster a community? It's not like you can build one, but you can enable one. And so why bother doing that? I mean, what should you expect to get out of that? The first one is because you can. And what I mean by that is one of the opportunities of cloud is you can measure the effectiveness of your community, right? Prior to cloud, you kind of throw your software out there onto the customer site and you kind of hope they're engaging from a community aspect, but you don't really know if they are. Well, you know what your customers are doing now. You know if they stop using you. You know if they never started using you. And most importantly, you know if they're engaging with you and with other members of their community. That's an important one. That's a little bit dramatic, but I think that a lot of people that have built any business that had growth, significant traction, they would tell you that customer-based advocacy was a big reason behind that, right? And so community is where that customer, one of the places where that customer advocacy will manifest itself. Your community is always going to be way smarter than you. They're going to think of ideas that you would have never thought of. And they're going to, we do another talk where we talk about why you should build an API. It's a similar type of thing, because when you build an API, people will consume your application through that API and do things with it that you would have never imagined. And the other reason is that your community creates a real barrier to entry for your competitors. You can't market a community. You either have it or you don't. And it's something that gets built up over a significant period of time and a significant investment, and the numbers kind of speak for themselves. You can't solve this one with a marketing slide. So I think that's sort of the compelling reasons. At least that's sort of why we felt it was important for our business. In the B2B world, I should have said that. I'm really talking about the B2B world. I'm not talking about communities in the consumer world, because let's face it, I think they've kind of got that sorted out. But in the B2B world, I think we're still pretty much at the early stages. So in that B2B world, the members, the types of people that are a part of your community, of course you have the customer and the end user, and that's the obvious one. You have the consultant or the developer or the systems integrator or the cloud service broker or their intermediary, whatever you want to call them. You have that person who sometimes sits in between the provider and the end customer. And then you have cloud providers. You have that might be partners of yours. And these are some of the key stakeholders. You could argue that your employees are also members of your community, but I'm trying to sort of implicitly say that in the cloud provider one. And then we thought about, what are the stages of community? What are the stages of community maturity? And we said, okay, well, how would we sort of measure community maturity? And I think there's kind of two ways, that we landed on. The first one's engagement. The more mature your community is, the more engaged the participants of your community are. And the second one is the ongoing value potential to your business of your community. So as you move up the curve of community maturity, the ongoing value potential increases. And so there's 4 categories, what we are categories. I'm not making a dramatic statement about community categories, but these are sort of 4 ways we thought about how you can think about where you're at in the community, and there's probably others, but I think these are 4 that you sort of see a lot of gravity around. So let's talk about these. So usage collaboration, and this is the one that's probably the most pervasive. Usage collaboration is a community that engages with each other to share best practices in using your product. So it might be a forum, right? Well, forums have kind of been around for a long time. So I sort of put that one lowest on the list. I do like the notion of chatter because, one, it brings a social element to the usage level, and it engages a deeper level of usage collaboration than just a forum, because chatter is inextricably linked back to your customer record. So if your customer's chatting, you can see that in your customer account. And so it's a nice social meets enterprise. It's a good marketing story, but there's also actually some real legitimacy to it. And so I wanted to call that one out. I think it's a good example because it does take usage collaboration and kind of bring it to the next level. One of the things that we did that has been successful for us around usage collaboration is collecting feedback about our product and building that mechanism right into the product. So when you log into the offering and you're working and you go, geez, I wish it did this, you can one click immediately go and submit that idea. You can look at what other members have submitted and you can vote on their ideas. The most popular things float to the top. These are well-known products that power this. But my point in sharing this with you is, the other discipline we put ourselves into is we committed that we would implement 25% of the most popular feedback items. So as the community member, you feel like we're listening to you because we're actually doing the idea that you gave us. So again, kind of slides you up that engagement level a little bit more. The next one is new development. So new development is somebody is building something on top of my offering. They're building something new, and that could be I have a platform and people are building an app on top of my platform. It could also be that I have an app and I have an API and people are building a net new application on top of my API. There's a couple different ways you can measure that, but now you're starting to get into this notion of developing IP or intellectual property. You're seeing the community investing more in your offering, in your platform by doing that. I think Heroku has been a company that's probably demonstrated the most success or traction with their add-on capability, where you can very easily, as you're building your app on this platform, add on complementary components that are built by third party. I think it's a good example. Another thing that we did in this category that we found to be impactful was enabled anyone in our community to build connectors. In the integration world, connectors are how you connect an integration middleware to a specific application. And you don't want to be the only guys building those. You want to let your subject matter experts build their own connectors. And so we opened up our platform and we enabled anybody to build and develop those connectors on top of our offering. And that's worked out really well. That's really helped with our engagement and our ongoing value potential because it's allowed us to proliferate the number of things we can actually connect and integrate. The next one, and I would say arguably kind of maybe at least in the B2B world, the least mature is monetization. So, we've collaborated on how we use the product. We've actually built something new on top of the offering. And now we're going to turn around and actually monetize that thing that we've built. So this would be not you, not the provider, someone else in that community ecosystem actually being able to generate revenue off of something that they built on top of your platform. The benefit from an ongoing value potential is, again, they're investing more in your business. You're now a revenue channel for them. And you're going to be successful as they're successful. I think arguably the best example of monetization in the B2B world, one of the best examples would be Google Marketplace. I think the reason why this one's the least mature is you have to have a market before you can have a marketplace. I think there's been lots of marketplace attempts before the market was there. To use the very lame and overused analogy of the App Store, I mean, the App Store was launched after millions and millions of devices were sold. It wasn't launched when the iPhone was launched, right? And so Google, when they launched their marketplace, they had a critical mass around their apps product line. And that created the gravity for that community to come and build and try and create a business off of that marketplace. And the last one, and the one that I guess kind of fascinates me the most, is the notion of collective intelligence. As cloud providers, we have an unfair advantage against our competitors, which is that we're multi-tenant. So we have derived value we can get because everybody's using the same instance of our offering. Mint.com is a cool consumer example of this. If anybody's ever used Mint.com, you manage all your expenses in Mint.com, and one of the things it tells you is for a particular spend category, how do you compare to people in your neighborhood or in the United States or wherever. Incidentally, one time I did that, and my coffee spend is off the charts compared to my competitors. Like it's a serious problem. It's an order of magnitude versus the other members of my community in terms of how much I spend on coffee. It was really embarrassing. So anyway, enough. I don't mean to make it too personal, but you check out Mint because you might learn something about yourself. But there's other really kind of fascinating ones. Another one that I liked a lot was if anybody remembers, Google did this. They did this 411 service called Goog 411. I don't know if anybody ever tried to use that. It's not around anymore. And they created this free service where you could completely automated. There's no possible way to talk to a person, so it's completely automated. Where you could ask for a pizza place near San Francisco, and it would give you options. And they since shut it down. But the reason why they built that was not to help you with finding where you wanted to go. The reason why they built that is because if you call Goog 411 and you ask it something and you make a selection, you've told Google that it correctly interpreted your voice, right? So it's learning from millions and millions of people calling in by optimizing the way it interprets human speech. And I thought that was a really clever way to leverage and exploit collective intelligence. Another one that just fascinates me is, baby monitors have been around for a long time, right? Well, this company launched called Evos that provides a baby monitor, and they do it based on iPhones, so you can just put your iPhone near your baby's crib, and you'll hear it from the other room in the house when the baby starts making noise. But the other thing they did is they centrally collect all of the noises that the babies make, so that they can begin to detect patterns. Like if the child has a colic, it will make certain noises, or if it coughs a particular way. So you can start to get alerted to things by analyzing sounds from all the different, babies being monitored. And I thought that was a really cool example. One of the things that we did along the same line was to help solve the problem of data mapping. In the integration world, you have to map fields between applications. You have to take a customer record in this application and map all the fields to customer record in this application. It's very time consuming. It's the most labor intensive part of building any integration. And because everyone's using the same version of Boomi and everyone's building all these maps, we started anonymously indexing all of the mappings that are being built across all our users. There's now over 2 million of them. And so now if you log in and you try to map something new, you get the benefit of every map that was ever built before you. And if we find similarly named fields, we suggest them to you with a pretty high degree of accuracy, and sometimes over 80%. And of the suggestions we give you, 87% of them are actually taken and used. So pretty good accuracy. And the reason why it's accurate is because the maps are constantly being added into this index, constantly being added. So we're continuing to learn from the collective intelligence of the community. The community is teaching us that, I did this thing 20 times, and 18 of the times I did it this way. So your confidence that it's going to be right goes up and up and up and up. So I think it's a good example. And again, there's lots more of these, but this is arguably one of the this network effect notion is arguably one of the most compelling things when you're engaging your prospects, and it's one of the hardest things for your non-cloud competitors to try to do. They really can't. They really can't do it without some serious cloud washing. So again, it gives you that kind of unfair advantage. So again, I think to kind of summarize some of these core things, I think it's really important to think community from the beginning. It should be a part of the initial design of the business. And I know part of that sounds obvious, because if customers are part of the community, yeah, we want customers. But I don't mean that. I mean the engagement of your community and how to enable that and refine it and invest in it. Cloud and community are inextricably linked, meaning that cloud is so available and so present that all of the members of the community are going to talk whether you want them to or not. And so it's really important to be present and aware of those conversations, to try to foster them to the degree you can. I think that's really, really important. I think that if you look at any B2C success, community is behind that. It's one of the core elements. And I think there's a lot of analogies to be drawn from that. And then, of course, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And that's the notion of embracing the fact that your community collectively is smarter than you are. They're going to think of things that you wouldn't have thought of. And they're going to give you staying power in your particular space. Because, again, when you've mastered a community, when you've built and grown one, it's very hard for your competitors to catch up to that. So that's really it. I've left 5 minutes for questions if anybody has any. including challenging me for missing like really basic stuff about community, that's just entirely possible. But I just wanted to kind of share our thoughts and some of the things that we've thought about and observed in companies that have kind of figured out how to make community work. So any questions from anyone? Yeah.
Do you find the community thing easy to communicate during the sales process? Are you really seeing it as an advantage, or is it just another point of confusion for people?
Yes, if you focus, if anyone didn't hear the question, is this something you really communicate as part of the sales process? I think it's a good question. I think, yes, if you focus on very tactical components of your community, like for us, we always talk about the ideas part where you can contribute feedback while you're working in the product. We always talk about that suggest where we'll do mappings for you. So we're not describing that as community per se, but the community is what made those things possible. So that's how we've approached it, and I think it avoids the valid point you're making about kind of like confusing the prospect.
Do you then integrate some online community with some advisory boards or whatnot? So you probably also have some key customers that you have a close relationship, a more traditional users group that is, person to person, and work that in with you. I mean, do those two work together? Or does the community obviate the need for a more traditional advisory board? How do these work?
Yeah, it's a good question. No, I don't think it does. I think, or maybe the way you engage with a customer advisory board changes as a result of a virtual type of engagement. But we're going through this right now with a product that we're bringing to market, where we have ongoing cadence of meetings with some of our customers and partners who are helping us review requirements. So it's very program specific, and it's much more of a mutual commitment of interaction versus like the quarterly let's meet up and talk. That one we don't do as much because we have a lot of these other capacities to engage, but for things like that, like a new product offering or a feature review or collecting feedback about something we're getting a mass of things that you don't like about the product, that's where we'll still do kind of a direct engagement, but it's change the interaction. Any other questions? Okay, well, thanks for your time, everyone.
All right, we've got one more session before lunch. I'll go ahead and invite the panelists to make their way up on stage. And I get the distinct privilege of introducing the moderator, who is also my boss, Ken Wash, the president of SIIA. And we're going to talk about trust and transparency and the importance to it today in the cloud.
Thanks, Rihanna. Put this down here. Great. We're going to run this panel. It's great to have a clock to keep us honest. We're going to run this panel a little differently than we've run some other ones, because we're not going to just yammer among ourselves. We're going to actually involve all of you right from the get-go. But let's introduce our panelists. All the way at the end, we have Patrick Fetterman from Plex Systems, Fritz Velnick. And next to me is first name, Roman. Of course, Roman Pavluk from the Ukraine. And what's unique about this panel is you've got 2 Europeans and an American, so we're outnumbered here on this side of the Atlantic. But it's certainly appropriate when we talk about trust in the cloud, because the issues are significantly diverse in what happens in North America and what's happening in Europe. And why don't we start with you, Roman, and you can describe how, what's going on and why there's this difference in sentiment over the issues of trust.
Well, I would say why actually the question of trust appeared in SaaS and cloud world. It's a good thing that in ancient times, we had all our servers being like in our servers room on premise. And you could like do everything you want. You could like touch your server, you could put your hand on it, and you could even like sleep with your server in your server room. And now somebody else sleeps in some other server room with your data. And it's like the question of trust now. Is actually this information is protected? Is it like being maintained properly?
Well, isn't this, wait a second, let me just challenge that for a second. Isn't this the kind of question that came up in the early days of the internet? I remember, 1996, 1997, when you'd purchase something online, people said, "Oh, do you trust that your credit card is going to be safe online?" And we all laugh about that now. And I don't think my credit card is safe when I go to a restaurant. Who knows what they're doing with that credit card beyond it? But the number of times that somebody's stealing my credit card is pretty small indeed. Isn't this the kind of thing that over time, the concerns about somebody else having access to your data and somebody else being responsible for its security is something that's going to diminish?
Well, it's like, you remember this first online shop users? They were brave guys. And so they started using something which is unknown. They actually created that trust. It's like first 10,000 people, they started making online transactions. And then the crowd, we are this crowd, we followed them. Or maybe you were one of these first people who actually made this first online transaction on Amazon, buying some books. But it's like years ago, I really had like very little trust doing online. I had even like my third credit card, which was actually a debit card. It's like, no, only to doing online transactions. Now I have all my cards filed on PayPal, which is actually also SaaS platform to doing online business.
That's
right?
a great idea, yeah.
And so we are here, the top industry representatives. So we were actually building this trust. We're going to be the first users who actually like answer new stuff. We will show an example, and then like the whole like very big community. We had a very nice presentation about community right a few minutes before. They will follow us. So that's the way you initially build the trust.
Right. Fritz, why don't we bring you into the discussion? You're part of an organization or a collective group of organizations in Europe called EuroCloud. What's happening with on the trust issue among the EuroCloud constituents?
Yeah, what happened there, maybe a bit background there.
Sure.
Is that one of the things, what we're facing, and we had long discussions there in Europe as well, how we can face the issue of trust. And what we said is, what actually is happening, you go into a company and you say, okay, all kind of assets, that's what you said. What you're running right now is give it away to us and we'll take care of it. And just sign here, you have got the SLA and tomorrow you can start and you can pay like you use it. And maybe that the proposition is very good, and from a perspective as we as the industry are discussing here is very good. But the customer on the other side is thinking, wow, what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to my organization? What's going to happen to my own staffing? How can I sell this up internally to the board? Do they understand what is really happening? And how can I know that what you provide me, the service you say you will provide me, that it will really be there? And how can I get some controls back to myself, so that I can show off that we are really in control? And that's a very interesting issue. And what we had the long discussions in Europe within EuroCloud, which is an industry association as well within 26 countries already in Europe. We had a long discussion on that, and what came out there is that there's now a new certification program being started. And the certification program should see to it that there should be certain controls in place.
Who's running that certification program? And what are the penalties for not adhering to those standards?
There are no penalties yet. The certification program is now being built. Mm-hmm. And what we're looking for in Europe is to get one general certification program, and per country added with specific country-specific issues on legal and all kind of data protection. All of you will know that in Europe that differs a lot from country to country still.
Sure.
And based on that, we want to make it more transparent, because it's about trust and transparency.
But somebody is going to certify that your firm is.
Yes.
It's not a self-certification.
No, it's not a self-certification.
Right. It's important.
Yeah.
Let's bring Patrick into the discussion as our representative from this side of the Atlantic. What's going on with SaaS 70?
So one of the questions that came up in prepping for this was, are there any certifications to look for, either for a company that's providing cloud-based services or as a customer examining cloud-based services? One of the most important certifications for the last several years has been SaaS 70, which is it's a set of controls, really. It's ensuring that companies have the appropriate controls in place and that they follow their processes and procedures in order to guarantee the services that they're providing. However, that's been migrating. It was kind of shoehorned into SaaS and cloud companies. It was not designed for that originally. It was designed out of the banking industry. There is a new version of that is superseding SaaS 70 now, and you're starting to see the first companies announcing compliance with this. SSAE 16 is the new standard, and this one is designed specifically for services organizations, making sure that the controls are in place to deliver the security, reliability, et cetera.
You get that SS, talk about acronyms, SSAE 16. And I understand it's run by AICPA.
That's correct.
The American, that's a test. Independent Certified Public Accountants, something like that.
Something like that, yes.
AICPA, right.
Because it originally came out as a banking services standard, and now the new version embraces more widely different services types organizations. But many of the larger services and consulting firms have practices based on this now, so you can get registered or be certified as compliant with it by the big consulting firms like Accenture, KPMG, et cetera, as well as many regional firms as well.
Yeah, if Rihanna's here in the audience, there's a good question for next year's Cloud Challenge. Is it what is the emerging cloud trust certification mark run by AICPA? And the correct answer for those of you who are going to be contestants next year will be SSAE 16. And I'll bet you nobody on that panel will get it.
But Ken, you're right there. It's an important issue, and maybe I could add something to that. What's even more important as well is that if you're certified with SAS 70 or the new version of that, you're able to say to your customer, you can come in and audit me. And there are a lot of companies, if they outsource the service or insource the service from you as an ISV, they have to meet their own compliancy. They have to meet their own compliancy based on SOX and this kind of stuff. So if they can say to the internal control department, we're rendering a service, it's a SaaS service, but you can go in on a monthly or a quarterly basis, you can do your own audit, so we know we'll be compliant with the service. That's very important for acceptance of these kind of services in these kind of organizations. And that got nothing to do with technology, got nothing to do with functionality, got all to do with trust and control by the organization of making use of these kind of services.
If I may, Fritz, I think if you look at the trust issue in general, there are three components that make this up. One is, can I trust you to be reliable, right? If you are not reliable, my job and my company is at risk. So that's the first hurdle. And over time, that's getting less and less of a question because cloud companies are delivering today, right? The second is...
RIM still hasn't gotten over its outage, and that's
true.
It affects the reputation.
It affects the reputation of all of us, actually,
that's right.
But second, after reliability, is security. So we do hear those questions all the time, but it seems like we're at a transition point where people are starting to assume, in some cases anyways, that cloud services and SaaS solutions are more secure than internal solutions or on-premises solutions. We seem to be hearing that, especially after we walk companies through what we do for security and have a 24/7 dedicated security staff, et cetera. The third issue related to it, though, is one that's a little more open, and that's privacy. Right? So it's not just can you keep my data from my competitors, it's what are you as a cloud provider doing with my data? And the concerns about Facebook and data aggregators all play into that. And I think that's something we all need to be very, very open with our customers about, is how we're using their data. We're actually at a funny point at our company where our customers are starting to ask us for benchmarks in their performance metrics to measure themselves against. So they want us to aggregate the data of all of our other customers to show them, and yet individually each one is very leery about allowing us to use their data in aggregate. So there's a catch-22 going on.
The benchmarks are measuring what?
So they're primarily key performance indicators, right? So it varies a lot industry by industry, but we service manufacturers, so it's things like inventory turns, overall equipment efficiency, et cetera, those types of KPIs.
Cool. Well, let's turn it to the audience. How often? Let's take a quick. Gee, these lights are impossible. You got the mic is there, but let's just see, just as a show of hands, the cloud providers in the audience. How important is trust among your customers? Raise your hand if trust becomes one of the top 2 or 3 issues that you're dealing with. Anybody want to tell an anecdote? Anybody's got an anecdote of a nervous customer and what they asked you to do? Anybody want to raise their hand? If I can see through this. You got a question? Sure, right? Please identify yourself, because all I see is a light.
Yeah, I'm Dave Key with Cloud Strategies. I had a customer who did medical imaging radiology, and they had a hospital that insisted that they accept unlimited liability if any of their data was lost. And so the hospital wouldn't go ahead with the cloud-based radiology without the company, the ISV, taking on unlimited liability, which fortunately they didn't do. But
they wanted the company to take on unlimited liability.
Yes.
Yeah, that'll happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they always want.
They didn't do it, but they didn't trust the cloud.
That's what they always want.
Well, what usually happens is that people think that I wanted to my cloud provider to take care about everything. It's like about my data, about my process. It's like, which is usually not right the way of thinking. And in your case, Dave, you should have your customer should have had the disaster recovery process in place, and that's being driven by the business, not by some vendor. We as a vendors, as a technology companies, we help you to establish that perfectly, but as the data owner, you have to make sure this process is in place, and this is very important. And businesses like healthcare, government businesses who operate with very sensitive data, especially like EMR, we know that they are very compliant about security. They compliant about HIPAA. They have HIPAA compliance, which is like you could be like SaaS 70 certified, but you will not be even able to pass the HIPAA certification by definition because there are some obstacles you're not able to remove, because that's the way you have your hosting businesses built. We had so many cases. And but operations infrastructure management, and especially the right way of doing that, is the thing that ensures you and helps to build this trust and confidence that actually all the data will be preserved. And what I usually tell to our customers, our partners, saying like, imagine that the bomb hits the data center and next few minutes you're still online because you have the disaster recovery process in place. That's how perfect you should be. If you build your service in that way, that's for sure you will have a huge trust from your customers. That's
terrific.
That's important, and the way you can manage that is by having a good governance structure in place. So if you offer that black box solution, you go to the customer, how are we going to manage that you have a governance in place, that you say, okay, this is the way how we're going to handle with incidents. Exactly. This is the way how you're going to be informed. This is the way how we handle your ticketing. This is the way we're going to report it. These are the responsible people you can anytime you call if there's an incident. And what will we do if there's an incident? You know, it's very important to gain that trust and to keep that trust, because every customer knows that something will go wrong. You know, we can discuss availability up to 100%, but always something will go wrong. And what's interesting for a customer there is what you do, how you handle that in the sense when it goes wrong, and that should give him a good feeling that you're in control of the issues and that you're capable of fixing it. And simple example is, in the sense of trust, what we're discussing here is that, you know, it's very good that you call a customer or an executive and say, what we see is that your system is slow. Yeah, it's not out, but it's slow, and there's maybe something wrong. You can do two things. Don't call him and hope it will end itself, or wait that the customer calls you and says, okay, the system is slow, maybe you might have a problem. In the sense of trust, the best sense is that you call him 10 minutes before he calls you. And make him understand what you're doing to fixing the problem, or what you are doing to understand where the problem might be. If you don't do that, the trust will go away very, 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 very fast.
So that's actually.
So governance, it's very important.
But that communications really is talking about a two-way trust. We're trusting the customers then to behave correctly and appropriately with the information that we're providing them, right? It's a very good point.
Yeah.
But usually they come to us, it's like they want the solution from us. So we are the first who actually going to build the trust.
Yeah.
Because if you go to some bank, you want to like put the money to the bank, you come with some level of trust, but you have doubts. And what the bank employee is going to do is actually he's going to explain to you how secure your money are in the banks. We are on the West Coast. We are on the Wild West, right? So it's like 200 years ago, like bank robbing was the like pretty good business here. And but now we all put money in the banks. We are not afraid anymore of that. Because banks built a huge infrastructure, they made a huge investment, they became professionals.
That was a good argument prior to September of 2008. There were a lot of people nervous about the banking system at that point.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Let's see if there are any other questions in the audience, because we can continue to discuss among ourselves. Anyone else want to grab the microphone and join in the discussion?
I have a question.
I got a question. Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
So please raise your hands who is very sensitive about their data, who is actually working, for example, with healthcare, with governments, and is...
Anybody in healthcare, anybody doing healthcare or government? I mean, obviously, if you provide data...
And not only, yeah.
What?
I mean, like not only these branches, but who are very, very, very concerned about their data.
Well, for sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, does it work? Small question around trust. We are a small company providing cloud services, so you didn't touch on that. But the bigger issue I have in selling my services.
Well, you got to speak up a little louder. It's not quite loud enough.
Okay.
Yep.
So we are a startup providing cloud services. So I'm touching on another aspect of trust, which is how can I trust you as a startup to be around for a long time. So the issue we're facing is that should we sell straight away to big name company just to be able to sell our services? And what sort of answer can we imagine to reassure our customers? Thank you.
That's a good question. The question then becomes, can small cloud service providers survive in this lack of trust environment?
Yeah.
Fritz?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and a lot of startups are facing that. What you can do there is discuss this issue and make it open during your sales discussion, because if the customer doesn't come up with it, you should, because they all have the question. So don't put it away. And try to make some measures around it, how you can ensure that there will be some kind of continuity or not. Because it might be, I don't know what kind of business you are, but if you're in a volume business with low pricing issues, the continuity issue might not be that big if you're providing a high value SaaS service. So spend time on contract endings, on continuity, and sometimes customers are asking for continuity warranties. And what happens, at least in the European market, is that some companies go to their hosting partner. If you're a small SaaS provider, you're looking for a good hosting provider who can provide continuity. And all these parties are interested in providing continuity services towards you, so that the end customer at the end will be ensured that if you will not be around, at least the service will be around for a certain period in time. Because it gives him the time, or A, to look for another service provider, to provide the service, or B, take it back on-prem or whatever he wants to do. And if you can have these kind of arguments, these kind of reasons even written in paper, that will really help the customer to move with you. And,
Good. Patrick wanted to join in here?
Yeah, we've seen the emergence of something called software escrow.
Escrow.
Right? So we're seeing that offered as a service by many different companies today. It's really essentially an insurance product that we or our customers can subscribe to. It's not cheap, but the idea is that if something happened to us as a company, not our infrastructure, but we went into bankruptcy, something else, somebody would still have the financial wherewithal to continue operating the platform we provide until such time that the customers could make other arrangements. In fact, it ends up being incredibly expensive. We've got multi-billion-dollar companies among our client base who pay us as much as a couple $100,000 per month for our services. And even for those guys, it's most of the time it ends up being too expensive, at least when they do an ROI calculation. We've actually got a group of customers that are looking at a group contract, part of our community members, are looking at doing kind of escrow themselves, putting up some money into an account that this core group of largest customers could essentially run the operation in case of a bankruptcy. It's a little funny to us because the SaaS subscription model, the revenue model, is so stable for us over time that there's a lot less risk for us than for a traditional software company going bankrupt, I think. But it's still, for a multi-billion-dollar company to trust the daily operation of their business, which is what we do, to a $50 million Midwestern company, it's a big sign of trust for them.
Great, that's good. Get the mic back. No, it's on it.
But this is a hot topic. I've been asked to do software escrow for 25 years. I used to run software with FileNet and a bunch of other companies. And done it many times, and I think it's total bull. I have never once in my experience, and I wonder if anyone in this room has ever seen a customer who has taken the escrow and has actually run something on it. And I've done the same thing you have, and we've had it certified, and we've half the people don't even ask if you can do a build over it. I have never once seen an example of its work. So I think it's a total panacea, and I just wonder if anyone ever has seen someone go through the other side of the software escrow, rebuild the software, and run successfully, because I'm not aware of it.
I think in most cases it's almost impossible, especially our system's got, I think, 9 or 10 million lines of code. It's a database with 27 terabytes of data on the back end. It's impossible.
So,
it's really about the operations, not the code, right?
It's ridiculous.
So it gets back to my assertion that this trust issue is it's an emotional issue, not an intellectual issue, right? We really have to get them over the emotional hump of trusting this thing that they cannot see or touch. We do win-loss surveys in almost all of our sales cycles, and we discovered something very interesting last year, which was when we took people on a tour of our headquarters and our data center, because they're co-located, we tended to win a lot more deals than if people didn't come out and see that. And it's because it got them over that emotional hump of saying, this is a tiny little company, I don't believe I can trust them with my data. When they see the infrastructure we have in place, when they meet some of the people operating the team, it goes a long way towards alleviating those worries.
I agree there, and what you see as well, what I'm interested in is how many of you are reporting on a monthly basis on all the things and services you're providing towards your customer, because that gives the same idea about, we made an arrangement, we made an engagement of using your service, but let me see how I'm doing, how you're performing against your SLA, how you're performing against your ticketing system, how you're performing within change management, how is your billing? Is your billing rather correct? Show me that it's correct. So you provide a lot of information towards the end customer on a regular basis, which will let him see that you're doing your job very well. And if you do not do your job very well, the advantage will be for him that he does not have to pay or whatever. That's completely transparency in the process towards the end customer. That's very important in trust and continuity in making use of your service.
But look what happened with huge social network providers like Facebook. Millions. It's going to be like few hundred millions people that they trusted their data to Facebook. And but the same people who are registered on Facebook, they check in different places so you can track how they move, how they go. They work as engineers, as managers, as C team members of the great corporations. They are very concerned about securing their data, corporate data.
Yeah. You know what? This discussion worries me a little bit in the sense that we live in Washington, and whenever there's a vacuum or a perceived problem, regulators or congressmen or elected representatives want to, quote, fix a problem. And we've been pretty successful so far at trying to, at avoiding over-regulation of what we consider the cloud industry. There's, David Leduc, who I don't know if he's in the audience because he may be upstairs at the Content Division conference. I think he is. He wrote a whole paper on, basically don't do anything yet. But what worries me is that where there's uncertainty, there's an invitation for regulation, especially in Europe. And are we going to be headed toward we already have the fear that we're going to be in a regulatory environment over privacy protection. In other words, you got to store the data locally. You can't take European data and store it in the United States. You got to store it in Europe and elsewhere. So basically, the world's divided into 5 spheres. Let me go over that. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got the United States. You got the EU. You've got China, which is a whole set of the largest intranet in the world, unto itself. You got Japan, and then you got the rest of the world. And if we end up with a regulatory structure that's 5 different requirements in 5 different regions of the world, we're going to diminish the a lot of the value of cloud computing, which cuts across national boundaries. Anybody want to talk about how we're going to avoid that?
It will be avoided naturally by itself. Look how.
We haven't been able to do it with taxation. We haven't been able to do it with data protection. Data protection rules are different. And the Chinese certainly aren't going to be, adhering to EU rules. Sorry.
Well, if you look back in the history, cloud actually was a thing that opened you the ability to have your data mobile, right? So you basically don't even care where your data is stored. You wish they're going to be in US. You wish, if you are a US-based company. For me, for example, as a European-based company, I would like the data to reside in European Union or Ukraine because it's convenient. But indeed, they may be in Middle Asia somehow. And so cloud was the thing that opened this. It wiped out the boundaries and made actually your data be able to locate it in the place where it's the most convenient for the providers. Because it's like in Hong Kong and Singapore, they have like cheap hosting platforms where they can put the huge storages there. Now we're going to put regulations because of different circumstances. We want to build a huge trust. We want to avoid, we want to protect our privacy because we see that it's like I was mentioning about Facebook, right? So people like put really a lot of information which is like, well, the information is not dangerous to the society, but the way it's being spread, it becomes dangerous. And there will be a regulation. So I think there will be some next wave, some next evolution that will like find a way to avoid it. It's going to happen naturally. So we had cloud, which made it happen, right? Like a few years before. Now we try to regulate it. We're going to certify it. We're going to have regulations put, as you said, in different regions, in different spheres. Now, it's hard to predict what's going to happen next, but there will be some new generation of data sharing.
Let's hope. Let's hope. Patrick wanted to jump in here.
I believe that the large multinational corporations are already superseding that. What we're seeing is companies that have businesses or divisions in China, in Europe, in South America, in North America, make us adhere to their own regulations, regardless of the governmental regulations.
It's true.
And it's absolutely what we see is those are not just multi-billion-dollar companies anymore. We see $50 and $75 million Midwestern manufacturing companies, automotive part suppliers, with plants in 4